3 words. BMW S1000RR. Okay, technically none of these are words, but just bear with me. 3 words that were just a weird combination of numbers and letters 12 years ago, and yet today stand for almost total domination of superbikes.
Well, it's BMW at their first attempt.
This is the best 1000cc sports bike you can buy.
After speed testing today, BMW has come out on top.
The unanimous decision really is the BMW.
Hate to be cliche, but I gotta get the S1000.
Alright. So with that in mind, if you're anything like me, you'll be asking yourself 3 things. Number 1, how the hell did it happen? Number 2, what does it mean for BMW as a brand? And number 3, what is it with Jebecca always leaving me on red? WTF, Jebs, WTF. Thankfully today we'll only be answering the first 2 questions.
Oh, thank God.
We'll also be looking into why, despite being a phenomenal success, the S1000RR is a bit of an abject failure.
I have failed you.
Fasten your helmet straps because it's finally happening. This is the unwrapped story of the bit and fay S1000RR. I will get a lot of flack for this, but BMW motorcycles used to be very boring. They had no exciting bikes, and that's why for decades they had exactly 2 types of riders. You had the GS Globetrotting Brigade with 3 kilos worth of flag stickers on their side cases and life-changing amazing stories. I'm not jealous. The other type was police officers, or people wanting to be seen as police officers, proudly spending their weekends on training courses and shopping for fluorescent jackets and plain white flip-up helmets to match their plain white RTs. And that was it. That was the whole of the BMW clientele. And they were acutely aware of this slightly dull image problem. And let me tell you, between having clients that rave about this to clients that rave about this as well, a lot has happened. And none of it was smooth. In fact, to the point this almost didn't happen. The story of the S1000RR breaking the mold and finally making BMW cool starts way back around 1989. If you know your cars, you'll know that around then, the car division was peak cool. The first ever M3 is out, an instant hit.
BMW M3.
The first M5 is out, a sedan that gave Ferraris a spanking. They make the Z1, which had bloody vertical doors, and then you had the motorcycle division making things like this. To inject some life into its tired lineup and bring some young people into the showrooms, BMW Motorrad releases something called K1 to show the world no, they're not squares, nuh-uh. They can be hip, they vape, they go to Burning Man, they're cool, and it belly flopped. Oh yeah, bad, really bad. The K1, supposed to be Beamer's flagship superbike, turned more stomachs than heads with its Ronald McDonald paint scheme. And behind its bold looks, it was really just another BMW sports tourer that was long, heavy, and big.
Look, I haven't time for these adolescent antics.
It was neither fast nor quick, it was more tourer than sports. The ZX-10 Tomcat was the reference at the time, and the K1 could barely get close to it, let alone best it. So it was relegated to being a quirky, forgotten footnote in BMW's history. Undeterred by this failure, BMW will try again. Harder this time. A little too hard maybe. Sometime around 1990, a meeting happened at BMW headquarters where they agreed that if they wanted to appeal to these mythical young people they keep hearing about, they needed to enter the new and increasingly popular World Superbike Championship. Race on Sunday, sell on Monday, logical, good for business, yeah. Only in the excitement, no one seems to have reminded them that they had no real superbike in their lineup, so they had to make one from scratch. And they made it. The name of this bike was the BMW R1. Wait, what? No, that's correct. I guess Yamaha shamelessly stole that name from the Germans.
Ah, naughty, naughty.
Look, the BMW R1 was a bit goofy. It was one of those cases of brand trademarks really getting in the way of performance, and them being German, trying to engineer that performance back.
Engine, we have to have a boxer engine, but we'll engineer ground clearance issues out. Suspension, like all the other BMWs, will put telelever in the front, paralever in the back. Chain. What is that? We'll have a drive shaft like all the other BMWs. Das ist logisch, it will sell, no problem.
It was dead on arrival. BMW's second go at making a cool superbike didn't even see the light of a production line. That flat twin, well, it wasn't going to make competition level power on its own. It needed very aggressive cam lift and duration. So to make the engine not eat its valves for lunch, they gave it a Ducati style Desmo system. Yes, BMW once made a Desmo twin. The problem is the engine is thick, and unlike the transverse Ducatis, it's thick in the wrong places. The 150-ish horsepower they now got with it made the bike vibrate so bad the engineers were worried it might crack the frame. So they had to detune it, making it uncompetitive. With the cylinder head sticking out the side, not only did the bike have the aerodynamics of a cow, the bike couldn't lean. So they had to mount the engine higher in the frame, but then that messes with the handling and rider comfort. That telelever front took away brake dive, but it also took away front end feel. So whoever BMW hired to race the bike would have to unlearn how to race a bike. It was just a mess, so in the end BMW just chose to abort the project rather than spend even more money rounding off the edges, only to potentially not even be competitive against the Honda RC30s and Ducati 851s, which were absolutely killing it on track. The point I'm trying to make is BMW really wanted to incorporate its trademarks and quirks onto the flagship superbike, even if those quirks had no business being on the track. Did they have to stick with tradition and trademarks? Technically no, in the same way I don't have to obey my restraining order against Jabeka. But that would have allowed them to sell more RTs and GSs. Oh look, the superbike has a telelever. It justifies the very existence of those complex and expensive systems in their road bikes. So, we're 2 failures down. Not great, but it's okay because we can call them lessons. It's never a failure, always just a lesson. And so far it's don't just dress a lazy tour and drag, give it makeup and expect wonders. And number 2, ooh, short one this one, don't be weird. Just don't. And just like that, BMW will hunker down, miss the party, and just watch from the sidelines the phenomenal time that was 90s World Superbike. In 2002 though, when MotoGP switched to 4-strokes, BMW will finally wake up again. 2-strokes were completely irrelevant to them, but 4-strokes, now we're talking, and it finally made sense to them to try and participate for the first time ever. BMW was at first confident they knew they could always rely on the expertise and R&D of the F1 team. But it only took them a few prototypes and development sessions to realize that maybe MotoGP was ruinously expensive and that perhaps there are cheaper ways to get that nice PR boost of racing without going bankrupt in the process. And that cheaper way was, you're not going to believe this, World Superbike Championship. Again, only this time they all pinky promised each other they were not going to make another doomed from the start R1. 9-9. The other advantage of the World Superbike is that obviously they can sell the bike as a production model to the public, recoup their costs, and incidentally finally have the cool flagship they've always wanted in their lineup. So they bin the MotoGP work and start a brand new project called K46 with one elegant, classy goal in mind: shit all of the Japanese and make the fastest liter bike in Germany. Sorry, the world. And the best way to prove that to the world was to win the World Superbike Championship. It's okay if it takes a try or two, but they had to win. So with a clean sheet of paper and flush with 1200 GS money, thanks to Ewan McGregor,
My pleasure.
around 2005 they start looking for a bike to take inspiration from. So they picked the legendary, the no introduction needed K5 Gixxer 1000. That was their benchmark to beat, so that was their starting point. And the first thing they do is give the Gixxer a telelever suspension. They just can't help themselves.
Hans, did you not read the memorandum? Mein Gott, no telelever, get it out!
So when BMW got that out of their system, and before Hans could fit the 3-button indicator bollocks, they focused. They remembered. The lessons. The pinky promises. No weird. Stick with conventional. Just make it the best. And boy did they do just that. The engine, no Desmo or Boxer here. The Germans swallowed their pride and put in a conventional inline 4. Not a longitudinal one, not a slant forward one, or upside down or inside out, just a regular 4-pot, the same you'd find in any of the Japanese competition or Yunnan's Camry. But going conventional with the engine layout didn't stop them making a mad powerhouse out of it. 193 horsepower. That's 10 horsepower ahead of the competition. 10 horsepower in motorsport is huge. It's the difference between finishing first or not even in the podium. All that in an engine that weighs only 60 kilos. 60! That's what a chimp weighs. And he can barely put out 1 horsepower. This thing puts out nearly 200 of them. Lazy bum. Get a job. So how did they do it? Well, the Germans brought out the big guns is what happened. Compared to the Japanese creme de la creme, the K46 had the biggest capacity, the biggest bore, the biggest throttle bodies, the biggest compression ratio. You'd really be excused to think the K46 was maybe overcompensating for something. And it was. BMW was a complete superbike version. Forget about your R1100S or HP2 Sport. No, this time BMW was dead serious. And it showed. I mean, just look at Friedrich. Do you think he's the kind to be messing about? Breakthroughs with the variable intake tracts, which made sure power was everywhere. Long stacks for a torquey bottom end, short stacks boosting the top end. Despite being rather expensive and a pain to manufacture, finger followers, all the rage today, were used instead of buckets for as little reciprocating mass as possible. That, along with valves made of titanium, made sure the cylinder head couldn't get any lighter. That was the only way to ensure the engine revved to levels only reserved to dentist drills. Playtime was over. That's not even the party piece of the bike. That is the electronics. The K46 was to have a groundbreaking electronic package, and it stayed unmatched for a while. Engine maps from rain to slick, race ABS, quick shifter, dynamic traction control, and they all worked with each other. This was revolutionary in the double O's. And even when the competition caught up, their systems felt agricultural in comparison. The chassis was not skimped on either, no telelever malarkey at the front, just some beefy AF 46mm Showa forks when the others were using 43. BMW was the first brand to put telescopic forks on the motorcycle, if memory serves me right. They knew their way around a fork. Showa also supplied the back shock, both front and back, fully adjustable and beautifully coloured and plainly marked. No more counting while turning screwdrivers like a pleb. You're a BMW owner now. Life is easy. The rest is conventional top spec. Brembos on big discs, beautiful perimeter frame and swing arm, the lot. The next step was making sure everything is cohesive and works well, so 1 million kilometers of test driving in all conditions should do the trick. In 2008, the K46 was finally announced to the public and officially named. You guessed it. You know it. The K46 was the code name of what became the S1000RR. Because one single R is not racy enough, we all know that. Even the name was a clear departure from the usual BMW naming. This was an S, a historically new category for BMW. And let me tell you, it did not stand for slow. At this point, the World Superbike version is shown, with all the lessons that would be learnt from that being used for the final tuning of the production model coming to the public next year. Next year, in 2009, at Portimao, journos are finally allowed to put their grubby little hands on the finished S1000. The final design is also shown, and should we talk about it? Yeah, let's do it. Nothing like a controversial subject to get the comment section going. Look, I still remember seeing my first S1000 and thinking, wow, now that is captivating. And in the good sense, not going to a Walmart in Florida sort of captivating. I personally love the asymmetrical look. Who said both sides of a bike need to look exactly the same? Very out of the box. The front and the whole bike aged beautifully, and that's thanks, or not, if you hate it, to the mastermind behind the R90 as well, Ola Stenegard, who surprisingly doesn't look like this, or this, but this. Just a normal fella. What I do not get is they're insisting at the time that the weird headlight was done only to save weight. Oh, it was done to save 300 grams off the bike. Because that's just bollocks, okay? That's just the marketing talking. Because if that's true, what happened here? Are you now not bothered about weight? Just say you wanted to make something a little crazy, okay? If people forgave you for the C1 scooter, they'll forgive you for trying some novel design, okay? Relax. Now, as I said, the fairing is also asymmetrical, with the right side featuring shark gills and the left side an extractor. BMW says it only needed one extractor instead of two, one on each side. I don't have a wind tunnel at home to verify, so I'll just assume it's true, even though the S1000 is infamous for cooking the rider's danglies. The S1000 looked barking mad, and to ride, well, as the journos found out, it was a revelation. It was fast yet somewhat friendly. Are you not Tom Sykes? Stick it in rain mode, which cuts down the power, and enjoy looking very cool with none of the skills to back it up. Do you know your way around a bike? Turn everything off and enjoy the full wrath of the S1000. The best visual example I can give you of just how good the electronics package was is this footage of an S1000 beating the quad-turbo Bugatti Veyron Vitesse. Beating the Veyron isn't even what's impressive here. It's the Bugatti level of acceleration during a wheelie. That's thousands of calculations a second by the bike to determine just the right amount of retarded ignition, of butterfly opening to give you maximum thrust without sending you into a skyground blank hospital room situation. There wasn't much wrong with it apart from the heat issue and the terrible buzzing of the bike at certain RPM, but you know what fixes both of those problems? What couldn't be fixed with speed is this urine yellow color some of them had, which has now grown on me, but back in the day, let's just say it took me a therapy session or two. Needless to say, BMW were vindicated with the reception of the S1000. Customers around the world were tripping over themselves to get one of the few produced in 2009. BMW waltzed in like a boss, blitzkrieged the liter bike market, and sent the Japanese to do some homework. This was a pivotal moment in BMW Motorrad's image. You had the S1000RR kicking everyone's ass, the insanely viral tablecloth marketing video, Chris Pfeiffer stunting the wheels off of his F800. Is BMW the cool kid now? BMW did the impossible. It's done the equivalent of the dreary nerd in high school suddenly getting ripped, coming to school in the Camaro, and banging the French teacher. Where did that come from? 3 years later, sometime between Red Bull convincing the man to jump out of space and the end of the world, BMW released a revised S1000RR. Better geometry, lighter throttle, and a bit more mid-range grunt. Nothing drastic. That came in 2013 with a special HP4. Do you have a lot of money and hate messing with your suspension? How about the world's first semi-active suspension? This wizardry tuned compression and rebound continuously and automatically, flattening even British roads. This bike, on top of making your spanners redundant, featured race spec componentry, Brembo monoblocks, forged aluminium wheels, launch control, a 200 section rear tyre, because why not at this stage? Reception is so warm for the S1000RR platform that in 2014 BMW decides to make a naked and a sport touring version, the S1000 Single R and XR. The recipe is still roughly the same, but with a sitting up position and a less peaky engine, shifting the power down the curve into way more mid-range grunt. In 2015, this time between a Greek bailout and a cheated emissions test, the S1000RR sees its first design update. It was same, different, but still the same. The design department essentially opened paint, pasted an S1000 picture, flipped it, and went to the pub. The engine gets a tickle to now put out 200 horsepower at the crank, grams that could be saved are saved, the wizard-like HP4 suspension is kept, and the geometry is more optimized. But just in case you really hated 68,000 of your pounds, in 2017 BMW would trade you them for the track-only HP4 Race, or Race, I don't know. BMW must have eBay drunk purchased a cargo ship of carbon, and instead of returning it, decided to just make a bike out of it. Even the frame is made of carbon. Seriously, this thing has more carbon on it than the air in a Cummins convention. Fully wet, this bike weighed 171 kilos. That's lighter than World Superbike bikes. The engine is so highly strong it needs to be replaced every 3,100 miles.
Oh, hell no!
And you thought your other half was high maintenance. This is the legendary Zach Course, a grown man who's ridden everything under the sun, getting a little bit excited than one of them. Just a little bit.
Let's light the fuse.
So just to stress my earlier points about how ahead of the game BMW was, 2017 is the year Honda and Suzuki finally put traction control in their 5-blade and Gixxer. 8 years after the first S1000RR. But now the competition was really up to speed, almost making the S1000RR look dated. And this brings us to today-ish. In what feels like yesterday, but is actually 2019, BMW had to strike back with the 3rd gen S1000RR. Visually, it's a clear departure. The monocle is lost and perfect symmetry is in the house. Even the shark gills are almost unnoticeable now. But don't let the tame looks fool you. This is still a sociopath who's lost weight, packs more punch, and is looking for any reason to start a bar fight. 11 useless kilos have been found in the engine and frame here and there. The geometry has been tightened up and the electronics have been pushed to the next level with deeply customizable everything. The party piece, however, is the engine, which for the first time gets variable valve profile to what BMW calls shift cam. This basically moves the intake camshaft into aggressive or soft cams. This gives a massive dollop of power in the mid-range, crucial for corner exit.
Yeah, boy.
And if having titanium valves wasn't rad enough, the crazy German boffins managed to make them empty inside. Just like me with this YouTube thing. This allows the engine to rev 400 RPMs higher. But looks have always left me cold, you know? Indifferent. So to remedy that, BMW decided to let the M division loose in the workshop, and what they've come up with is the latest and greatest of the lineage, the M1000RR. Much better. But BMW didn't just slap carbon wings on the thing. The engine now makes 212 horsepower. I know you're completely desensitized to huge power figures, but what is amazing is that this time you don't have to put the engine in a bin every 3,000 miles. Boom, progress. The Pankel titanium conrods is what made it possible, and a few other things that could make the subject of a whole video. That, with a plethora of top shelf bits and bobs like a diamond coated chain, make the purpose of this bike clear. Be the obvious choice for race teams. And this neatly brings me into my final point. Why did earlier me say, the S1000RR is a bit of an abject failure? I mean, BMW sold over 100,000 of the things, each generation has been better than the last. What gives? Well, remember when I said the S1000 was supposed to position the brand as a heavyweight in the racing scene, winning World Superbike and so on? It's okay if it takes a year or two. Yeah, about that. Since 2009, in 12 years, they won a grand total of 0 championships. 0.
All right.
What makes this result even more unflattering is the S1000RR's mortal enemy, the Aprilia RSV4. Launched in the same year in 2009, Aprilia enters it to compete in World Superbike, just as BMW did with the S1000. The Italian company, however, orders of magnitude smaller than BMW, found a lot more success in the maiden year, with Biaggi scoring a 4th place in the championship and many race podiums. BMW came 12th overall, hardly inspiring. But okay, fine, now they got a bit more data, next year it'll be better, right?
Nope.
Aprilia kills it with an outright championship win with Biaggi in 2010. BMW? 11th. Yikes. And it goes on like that, with BMW rarely troubling the leaderboard, but the RSV4 snatching championship wins in 2012 and 2014 before the Kawasaki domination of World Superbike afterwards. Aprilia's much more stellar racing record has been embarrassing to BMW. There's no two ways about it, it's black and white. They started at the same time with the same amount of experience, and they didn't have 1200 GS money. BMW entered racing all those years ago for the publicity to actually sell the damn things. But even with no wins, they have sold S1000RRs by the bucket. Aprilia, on the other hand, won 3 world championships, but the RSV4 sold nowhere near the S1000. What makes the S1000RR story even more amazing is that it was launched right into a world crisis, with purses tighter than ever, and still made a commercial success out of it. Or was it the overly strong yen making Japanese bikes too expensive, breaking their stronghold? Was it just people getting fatigued with the lack of progress in Japanese bikes when the S1000 brought brand new technology and sprinkled cruise control and heated grips to seal the deal? Was it simply the power of a BMW badge, the dealer network, the marketing force behind it? Something Aprilia, for example, didn't have. The reality is probably a combination of all of these factors. One thing is for sure, however, for us mere mortals, the S1000RR moved the whole superbike game a notch further and has etched itself as a cornerstone of the superbike lineage, right there along with the original R1, 5-blade and Gixxer 750. The S1000RR made BMW cool. It wasn't the brand only for middle-aged middle management Captain Sensible anymore. It was the first BMW to not make for a laughable picture with a supermodel on it. They didn't get the formula right immediately, but when they did, they got it right big time. For the 3 guys left watching, consider pleasing the almighty algorithm by doing all the things that other YouTubers ask you to do. I hope you enjoyed this. It took a long time to put together, so consider supporting me by just sharing the channel around. Share it.
Share it now. Do it.
We have crossed many milestones so quickly with the Ducati Monster video, which genuinely took me by surprise. So welcome aboard to all the new guys and gals, and stay tuned. I'm preparing a whole new format to add to the channel. You don't want to miss that. In the meantime, you're here anyway. Why not watch another one?